Hey, Brandon.
What's up, guys?
You look.
What up, everybody?
Brandon, how?
It's good to be here.
How's it going? Man, you look so much better than usual. I feel like you're dressed more appropriate for this.
I don't look like a tool. You know what I mean?
You're finally able to grow some
facial hair.
Some man facial hair.
I'm a real man.
You're a real man.
Shout out to, I got to say though, shout out to our boy Brandon. Because you asked me to fill in like last minute. You asked me yesterday, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? And I was like, man, I don't have enough time to go through all the fights on the card. And he said, well, just do the main card. So everybody, before you guys murder me in the comment section, I've seen your comment section.
They're brutal.
They
right?
go hard in the comments.
They go hard.
Take everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt because I haven't had a whole lot of time to study footage and to break these things down. But I'm somewhat confident in my picks today.
You guys, hold on. Don't take anything with a grain of salt. If you're coming on here, they're taking it as if you're an expert. If you get one thing wrong, you're the worst human on the planet.
I know nothing about the
sport.
You're
so stupid. You deserve to die.
Yeah.
Like, man,
So I've seen your comment section, man. I don't know why you guys attract the types of followers you do, but I hit up Brandon this morning. I hit up Brandon. I said, hey, I was like, listen, man, I'm filling in for you on the pod today. Can you do me a favor? Can you send me over like some of your notes, you know, and who you think is going to win? And I didn't ask for, I just said, who do you think is going to win these fights? And just send me like a note or two of each fight. No response.
So, of course not.
Shout out to my boy, Brandon, man, coming through. Happy to be here helping you out, my friend.
I'm doing this for you.
Yeah, I'm doing this for you.
Nothing. Not even. You just see it's been seen and then no response.
Yeah, exactly.
Red. You have 9:23 a.m.
Yeah.
No response. Sounds about right.
This will be fun.
We've got UFC. What is this? 293 Adesanya and Strickland. We are just going to do the main card with Kamuela here, our dear friend Kamuela Kirk, who all of you love. You know that's a lie. You've seen the comment section.
We'll see how much. We'll see how much longer they love
that's
me.
Not true.
As soon as my fights start losing these picks, once they lose on
they
Saturday,
actually
the love is
might
out the
like
window.
you more after this.
I hope these guys do well.
They can't like you less.
It would be impossible. You can't get lower than rock bottom. Once you hit, there's nowhere else to go other than up.
So we're gonna do the main card here. After that, I'm gonna do the undercard, which honestly, it's kind of a shit card for being a pay-per-view.
I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say, dude, the last few pay-per-views have been phenomenal.
Yep.
I mean, like top to bottom, like every fight on the main card could be its own main event. And this card, I'm like, of course, you guys asked me to come on for this one. I'm going through, I'm like, who's this guy?
I've never seen any of these people.
Right.
Yeah. You're like, John Makdessi, don't know him. I'm like, you know, he trains with us, right?
He's your teammate.
Oh, like everyone on the card, like this was like last week too with in Paris. Brandon, you know, I didn't do that one. Brandon did that, you know, with Pierce. And I'm going through it because I had a bunch of other stuff to do. And I'm going through it. And I'm like, I don't have time to tape this. I've never heard. I know Cyril Gahn. That was it.
Yeah.
And this is what I do. I do these all the time.
But you know what?
Every week.
That wasn't a pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying? That's what's crazy. Like this is a pay-per-view. And a lot of these fights, man, a lot of these guys, I didn't know who they were at first.
This card, though, is funny. I feel like it's city kickboxing versus the world. Every single there's an A side of every single fight, and it's all city kickboxing. Eugene Berriman is going to be he's just going to stay in the corner.
He's
not going to leave.
You see with every single fighter on one side, you see the Australian flag or the New Zealand flag. Yep. And then on the other side, you see every other flag.
You see the world all the way there. So let's get going on this card. I'm sure you have stuff you don't have anything to do, but
no, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to nod along and just kind of agree with whatever you say. And maybe just to make things fun, I might just disagree with you.
I like it. Contrarian. Before we get going, you guys, check out the Discord. Okay. The link is in the show notes. $25 a month. You spend more money on that on coffee in a day. Well, I do. I spend more money on that than coffee in a day. Check out our newsletter. Of course, you know, we send our weekly newsletter, free tips, tricks, all the good stuff on the bets. And let's get going. That's it. That's the only thing.
Let's do it.
Are you promoting anything these days? Do you have anything? Where can people follow you on IG?
No, you guys can check me out, The Joanne, across all social media. And for now, that's it. I am working on a pretty big sponsorship at the moment, but nothing's finalized. So keep that one to myself.
If they don't sponsor, nothing.
If they ain't paying yet,
they're not getting mentioned.
Saying.
Well, let's get into who's the first fight of the night. It's Tyson Pedro
and the pleasure man,
Turkalj. Why don't you kick this off?
Yeah. Okay. So I did watch a little bit of film on these guys. And so from what I've seen with Anton, too, just a little bit of digging.
It's cute, you guys. He has notes.
Yeah, I need them. Bear with me, guys. He won on the Contender Series, but from what I've seen, he's lost both fights since. So Tyson honestly has fought some really good competition too. He has 4 losses, but a couple of those losses were to Khalil Roundtree and Paul Craig. So two tough dudes. I'm sorry. He has a couple wins.
I was like,
wins over Khalil and Paul Craig. His losses are to Shogun and OSP.
Mhm.
He's the hometown fighter. So I tend to, especially a place like Australia, I tend to lean towards the hometown guy because I know that with jet lag, and going to a place like Australia, it could be so difficult to completely recover and then fight at your best.
Separate from this, you may know this a little bit. People in YouTube land may know this, or podcast land. These like themed events, they are put on for the local people to win. Like almost always, like you had a Paris card last, week. You get these Brazilian cards, a Chilean card. The local fighters are the A side almost always.
Right.
And then, so the trick on these, just as a whole, is figuring out which one of the A side is going to lose.
Yeah.
And so just as a whole, I think always, of course, jet lag and all that stuff plays, but man, favorable matchup.
Exactly. Looking at the matchup too. So with that said, when I was watching these guys and doing a little bit of digging, I was actually leaning towards Pedro, and for the reasons that you just mentioned. But one issue that he has is he doesn't have great cardio. And so I think for me, ultimately, I settled on if he wins, I think it's going to have to be early in the fight, probably round 1. And I think if he doesn't finish the fight in round, and he has the ability to do so, but if he doesn't finish in round 1, then I think the pleasure man is going to end up taking over and either winning by submission or getting the decision.
Man, the pleasure man. He had a wild fight in his last fight. Who did Victor Petrino? Is that who he fought? Who was it? That was a wild fight. Victor Petrino. And Petrino is just tough. He's not the most technical guy
He's
out
a
there.
brawler. He will swing.
Man, and they went at it.
Yeah, and he came out he was even wrestling, which no one was expecting. He went out there and took down the pleasure man pretty early on.
Pretty easily. He over grappled and would get reversed and do stuff. But he also, I feel like he could hit Anton at will, but then would initiate the clinch and initiate the grappling. Now, the other thing with Pedro is, so in his last fight against Modestus Bukakas, they said that he has never won a fight past round 1, which is interesting. I didn't fact check that. You guys can fact check it if you want. I'm assuming, hey, they said on a UFC broadcast, it must be real. So that said, he also, I believe, because we all had Tyson Pedro to murder Modestus, and I believe it came out afterwards that he was sick or that he had staph or something, had the flu or something like that.
Which would explain the conditioning.
Yeah, which was, now he's slowed down in the past.
But in that fight specifically.
And he went out there for the kill in round 1. And that kind of makes sense that he really tried to kill him in round 1, round 2 and 3 just didn't do much. But Modestus is known for not doing a lot, not pushing the pace. I definitely lean Pedro here for the win. I think even if it does go past round 1, I think he's actually good enough. Anton is a grappler. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, but his wrestling's not great.
Right.
And I think Pedro's defensive wrestling is going to be good enough to avoid that. And Anton is just so hittable. And Pedro moves well. I mean, he sets it up. Anton
is slow.
That's very slow.
He's slow. And even when I was watching him, he throws a lot of one-off combos.
Yep.
He doesn't set up his kicks. He'll just wing kicks one at a time. And same thing with his punches. He'll just step in with the big left hook, which is why he's so easy to hit. If you time him when he's coming in, you'll pick him apart. But yeah, man, I've gone back and forth on this one, and this is why the odds are even on this fight as well. I think it's a pick 'em. It's a coin toss a little bit, but yeah,
I think Pedro's the A side here. I think Turkalj is tough. I don't think in round 2 and 3 he's going to have enough gas and wrestling to really push the pace to do what he needs to do to get the win.
Okay.
So I lean Pedro, but it's one of those. After the Modestus fight, who he started as a big favorite, he was an underdog at the end of round 1. So it's a live bet. If you guys see Pedro looking pretty tired in round 1 and, slam the Anton.
And like you said, though, talking about the wrestling, because Anton doesn't have the best wrestling, but against somebody who's exhausted and doesn't have if you don't have the best wrestling, but the other guy doesn't have the cardio and the strength to defend it, you know what I'm saying?
It's real. All right. Next up, we've got Justin Tafa and Austen Lane. Tafa is 6-3. Austen Lane is 12-3. We capped this when this fight happened with the eye poke.
Right.
And everybody was on Tafa, myself included. And then we saw, it was 29 seconds into the fight, and we saw Tafa just eat a couple middle kicks, and Lane look good and move. Look, it was 30 seconds in. I feel like that 30 seconds was enough for me to kind of sway the other way on this, where I don't think, and here's why. Like, I'm still not sold on Austen Lane. He's beaten up a lot of guys who are not phenomenal. But even if you look at him, it was against, pulling this up right now.
This man's giving me a hard time about my notes. And look at him.
Juan Adams. So he fought Juan Adams, got taken down for 3 rounds, just taken down, stayed super calm, super composed, knocked him out in round 4. It was a 5-round title fight. So his striking isn't amazing, but he's long. He's like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, he's definitely the taller fighter.
Yeah. He fires that middle kick. Tafa is a southpaw, so it's there. Tafa lost to, who the hell else? And I'm going back as well. He lost to Jared Vanderay, you guys, who just is a nothing burger, as Brandon Olivas would say. I'm going to throw that in there for you, Brandon. See if you watch the whole show, and, little shout out. He just doesn't do much. He's just there. He's kind of durable. He won't die. And Tafa lost to him. He lost to Carlos Felipe, who's, decision. I want to say Tafa. Tafa's an A-side. They're trying to find, they rebooked the fight. I wouldn't be surprised to see Lane just do enough and not die and end up 3 rounds later winning a decision off of Tafa not being able to just find his range. And I really don't like a lot about Lane. His chin is up. He's long. He's gangly. He's not great.
That's why I actually think he's going to lose.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that Tafa's going to get on the inside. And granted, we only did see about a minute of them. I think the fight was 57. It was like 50 something seconds long, and then the eye poke happened. And he did land some good body kicks. Fortunately for Tafa, he's a southpaw, so that wasn't hitting. Those weren't hitting his liver. But I actually think that Tafa's going to get on the inside
and land an overhand
and land a big overhand.
Surprise
I think he's going to put Lane out. Lane has 3 losses by KO, and they're all in round 1. So those 3 KO losses are in round 1. So I see Tafa getting on the inside. He's durable. He's tough. Not the most technical fighter in the world, but if he can make it ugly, I think he can, and connect on the chin, I think he puts Lane out. So ultimately, for me, I got to go with Tafa by knockout.
You think it's going to be? I'm looking at his record right now. Greg Hardy, 57 seconds of round 1. You think Tafa does the same thing?
I think he's going to
find his way on the inside and just big
and make it ugly.
Yeah,
make it ugly. And you're right. I mean, and Lane does have a bad habit of doing this. And when guys have a bad habit of doing this, and other guys are brawlers and they like to swing those overhands, it's a bad combo for the dude who puts his chin up.
Gosh, you want to sway me back? I was like, no, this is a Tafa thing. But I remember watching that fight.
Oh, here's the other thing too, though. If you look at their records, he lost. What was it? He lost on Contender Series the first time around, and he's put together a solid winning streak since. Right. But beating guys outside of the UFC is not the same, man, as beating guys inside the UFC. Tafa's been in the UFC since 2019. He's fought some good competition. He's fought some solid, and he has lost as well. But putting together a winning streak outside the UFC, man, and that's just not enough for me to be like, all right, he's going to come in, he's going to beat Tafa.
So here's the thing, though. So I agree with you 100%. His wins in the UFC are against Juan Adams, who is not in the UFC anymore, and who Lane also beat. Harry Hunsucker. You know Harry Hunsucker, right? Yeah, no, exactly. You don't. You've never heard of him.
I was
He's been, yeah. Nobody's heard of Harry Hunsucker. And he beat Parker Porter. And Parker's a middle of the road.
I'm surprised Harry Hunsucker's not on this card, man, because I didn't really know much of anybody on this card.
I know. He lost to Jared Vanderay, lost to Jorgen De Castro, and in his best fight, I think, was a split decision loss to Carlos Felipe. He is not a world beater either.
And I agree with you.
That said, I'm sticking with Austen Lane here. I'm not proud of it, you guys. I'm a little ashamed. I'm ashamed to say it. Unfortunately, I'm going to go with Austen Lane.
I'm going with Tafa. I think he's going to be more durable of the two. And I think, again, if he gets on the inside and Austin's chin is up in the air and he makes contact, I think he puts him out.
Actually, I got to revisit this fight later on, and I'll explain why. So, all right. For now, I'm going Lane. You're going Tafa. Next up, we've got Manel, Kape, and Felipe dos Santos.
Yeah, I got Kape, man. Kape is tough. He's been in the UFC, for a couple of years now. What's interesting about this fight is that Dos Santos was actually supposed to fight. It was like, I think week 2 of Contender Series. His opponent ended up backing out, and then it was Keifer France who ended up having to pull out of this fight. So they actually bumped up Dos Santos, and now he's fighting on the pay-per-view UFC 293.
Yeah. From Contender to pay-per-view.
To pay-per-view. Exactly, which is incredible. The dude's young. I think he's 22 years old. Kape is good, man. Kape made his debut against Pantoja, the current champion. And it was a good fight. You know, obviously he lost, but it was somewhat competitive. Based off of just experience. He's 29. I think he's just more mature as a fighter, more mature in his career. I think he gets it done. Dos Santos could have a good career, man, but I just think it's a little too soon from against that caliber of competition.
What you just said there was exactly what I was thinking. Is too soon. He actually does everything well. Dos Santos, if you look at him, first of all, every fighter that comes out of De Lima with Charles Do Bronx, they all fight the same right now. And the thing with that is, yes, it's good. Yes, it's effective for Charles. But remember, we saw the same thing with Dominic Cruz. When everybody went out there, and after Dominic had a lot of success, everybody wanted to be Dominic Cruz.
Everyone's bouncing around on their toes and leaning left and right.
And they are mimicking Dominic, but Dominic did invent that by looking at other people's footwork. He looked at 3, 4, 5 different people's footwork, figured out how to implement that himself, and then he made up what
worked for him
style.
And anytime you try to take somebody else, right? So if you try to look at Dominic Cruz and go, I'm going to fight just like Dominic Cruz, you're going to end up being a poor man's version of Dominic. Because Dominic knows why Dominic is doing what he's doing. These other fighters are just trying to do what Dominic does without knowing why he's doing what they're doing.
Exactly. They need to go back and look at where Dominic got his information from, take whatever they take
and apply
out
it
of
to their games, their styles.
I think the closest we've seen emulate Dominic well was TJ Dillashaw, and actually kind of changed and morphed into his own version of it. I think it was when he was trying to get Uriah Faber or Cody, one of them ready for Dominic. But anyway, and so you see that.
Even that, he had a little bit more power too. So he was able to take the good things that Dominic did well, but he had more of the finishing capabilities, solid wrestling. But yeah, anyways.
And he implemented it differently. Dos Santos is the same with me with Joe Bronx. He does everything really well. High guard, good Muay Thai. Looks like he has decent jiu-jitsu. He has a really good front kick that he likes. He's got the range. He does everything really well. He's just too young. Yeah. He's just not ready yet. And you see a lot of these guys, 5-0, 6-0, 7-0, coming up from Contender, make it to the UFC, really good prospects, and they fizzle out. They're there too early. And
the level of competition is different. You know, we talked about that with Austen, you know, and the guys that he's been fighting now versus the guys that Tafa's been fighting. It's just different.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I like Kape here. He's a sizable favorite. I think he should be. All right. Next up, we've got Tai, Shui, Tuivasa, and Alexander Volkov. And this is a hard fight for anyone. Volkov is 6'7". And Tai Tuivasa is probably 5'11", 6 foot, something like that.
I think he's 6'2".
Is he really? Yeah, is he that tall?
Yeah, yeah. He's got the Volkov has the 5-inch height advantage.
Okay, I thought he would have had more of a height advantage. Look, I love Tuivasa. The front kicks. The front kicks of Volkov are brutal. They're phenomenal. He uses them so well with his range. And we saw Cyril Gane use those same front kicks in their fight.
Yeah.
His takedown defense is really good. I don't know if Tuivasa is going to start. I mean, Tuivasa will clinch. I don't know if he's going to really fight for takedowns, but this is a really hard fight for Tuivasa to win. Again, the range of Volkov. Volkov's fights for how big he is in lumbering. He's got good cardio. He's got good cardio.
Yeah, he
uses his jab well.
He's calculated. He knows his distance. He knows his range well.
Like, I mean, Tuivasa to win is really going to have to create a brawl. And Volkov doesn't brawl. Like, he doesn't engage in that. He has really good footwork. He moves well. I like Volkov here. And I'm actually, this is why I said I'll get back to that Austen Lane fight.
I was going to bring that up too.
Yeah, I may end up having to go Tafa because not a lot of the Australians are going to lose. And so I don't think that I could pick 2 Australians on the made card to lose.
It's funny that you may switch and go with Tafa, because for the same reasons I chose Tafa, and I agree with everything you're saying. I'm actually going with the dog here. I'm actually going with Tai Tuivasa.
Okay.
I think he's Tai, number one, he's pretty durable for the division. You know, he's on a 2-fight losing streak right now. I think I saw something. If he ends up losing this again, it'll be the second time he would be on a 3-fight losing streak in the UFC, which is just kind of interesting. But his last fight was against Gon. Dude, Gon's a murderer. The guy's a beast. I think he's gonna get in there, man. I think he's gonna make it ugly. And if he can put hands on Volkov's chin, dude, I think he ends up getting the win. I think he's gonna turn it into a brawl, just like I think Tafa's gonna turn it into a brawl. And I think that when those guys land, man, I don't think their opponent's chins will be able to hold up.
Okay, I'm looking really quickly knockouts. Volkov got knocked out by Derek Lewis in round 3, and Tom Aspinall armbarred him in round 1. Other than that, I mean, you don't really. He's pretty durable.
He is. He is.
That's a guy that I don't really see just really getting knocked out and beat up.
But he doesn't. At least from what I've seen, he doesn't have. I don't remember him being in a lot of those brawling type situations.
Yeah.
But when Black Beast was able to make it a brawl in round 3, he knocked him out, and that was actually a really boring fight up until that point. Like Black Beast didn't really do much. But yeah, I mean, everything you're saying makes sense. But I think that Ty's going to make it ugly, man.
So on the main card, do you think all the Aussies win? So we've got Pedro, Tafa, Tuivasa so far. So you think they're going 3-0 out of those right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, we got the main event. We've got Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland.
Easy dub, right?
Easy, right? You think you just
we agree?
We
wrap up the podcast.
I think we're done here. I think we're good. Tell me about this fight first. Does Strickland have a chance?
Honestly, man, I don't think so. I don't think so. And here's why. He's not a power striker like Pereira, and he's not a great wrestler like some of the other guys that Izzy's fought. Of course, you got to respect him. He's got a good jab. But other than that, what does Izzy really have to fear with Strickland? Getting knocked out, getting out wrestled, getting subbed? I don't think so. I think that Izzy's going to kind of have his way with him. I think he's probably going to if he doesn't knock him out, I think he's going to pick him apart. And the thing with Izzy is Izzy's not, he did knock out Pereira, but look at how many guys he's gone the distance with, right? So many of these guys, the majority of his wins that I can remember off the top of my head come by way of decision. So I see him picking Strickland apart. I don't know if Strickland's going to wrestle him. I think he wanted to wrestle with Pereira, and he actually even said this in an interview. He wanted to wrestle. That was the game plan. They did a lot of wrestling for that camp. And then in the fight, he was like, "Nah, I want to stand with this guy." I could see the same thing happening. And even if he tries to take down Izzy, Izzy's got great takedown defense, and has stuffed out a lot of guys who have had better wrestling than Strickland. So I kind of see just Izzy picking him apart and getting the decision.
Yeah, Strickland's thing is his pressure. He pressures people. We saw it when he fought Abus recently, where he'll kind of take a beating in round 1 and just keep the pressure going and going and going and going, and then he'll break people. But Izzy he's got good cardio. He's got good footwork. He's not going to adrenaline himself out. He's not going to go swinging for the fences and then die afterwards. Like, there's nothing really there. I actually think this fight is going to be very similar to the Paulo Costa fight. What I mean by that is Sean is going to pressure quite a bit. I would expect to see that a lot. And Izzy just using his footwork. And we saw Izzy, every time he would go left, he would be in southpaw stance. And then he would circle right, go orthodox, and just eat up that lead leg, shuffle out. And Paulo could never really track him.
Slowly just chop him down.
And that's what I see with Sean Strickland. And the other thing is, with the Whitaker fight, with Cannonier, with a lot of these other opponents who are fighting Izzy, they offer a lot of attacks, a lot of different stuff. Sean doesn't. He comes at you and he jabs and he jabs and he jabs.
He's going to stand
and he jabs 5,000 more times. He jabs. And then he starts firing right hands and he starts mixing it up. But Izzy, I don't think he's going to be afraid of Sean like he is a Cannonier who can hurt him.
Exactly.
So he's got to be much more careful. And I think he's just going to teep him to death, calf kick him to death, and then little by little start to add on some more hands.
Yeah. When it comes to trash talking, Strickland wins.
Oh, he's going to win.
Strickland
It's
wins.
going to be the best.
Yes.
I love his interviews. Everyone gets a little overly dramatic with the stuff he says. Calm down.
But what I love is that there are certain people on this earth that you can't cancel. No matter how hard the mob goes after him, people try to cancel him. You can't cancel Dave Chappelle. You can't cancel Bill Burr.
They won't allow it.
And you can't cancel Sean Strickland.
They don't care.
You see him wear the shirt that said cancel me? You just can't do it. So I love Strickland for that, because the dude will say whatever outrageous thing comes to mind. So it's not a personal thing. I like the guy. I just don't think he has the skill set to beat Izzy.
I would like to see Strickland as champ. Could you imagine the nonsense that is said if Sean Strickland is champ? He would be hilarious.
He'd be the best.
It would be the best month of our lives.
Exactly.
And then when whoever he fights next, I think takes it. Because I just, look, I really like Sean Strickland. I think he's got a lot going for him. I think he will always be, until he kind of starts to physically fade, top 10 to top 3. But I just don't.
If he'll ever become champ, that's probably it probably wouldn't happen.
Exactly.
I would imagine. Shout out to Izzy though too, real quick, because Izzy, he's fighting Sean Strickland, not necessarily because Sean Strickland's the most deserving guy, but because he's cleaned out the division. He's fought everybody else except for
Duplessis, who I like. Apparently, I have to pick him to win no matter what, because I am 0 for 6 now.
And it'll
Duplessis.
be me too.
Yeah, and then he'll end up losing in horrible fashion.
Exactly. It'll be the one time.
The guy won't die. He won't. But Duplessis was going to get the title shot. Izzy said, I am fighting in Australia. Duplessis wasn't ready, and they're like, on to the next.
Right.
Go. So I think that's probably the next one.
He's got to be, I think Izzy, he's got to be the most active champion in the UFC. I would, him and Volk, maybe.
Yeah.
Those guys are fighting all the time.
So, I think Izzy wins. The betting thing, though, is I think everyone expects a knockout. It wouldn't surprise me to see this going the whole distance.
That's what I'm leaning to. I lean more so towards this going the distance than there being a finish, because that's just how Izzy fights a lot of times.
And I think if Sean in round 3 or 4 knows he's down and just goes in there for the kill and goes balls out trying to kill him, then I think Sean could get finished. But if Sean keeps his pace and keeps his temper and doesn't just go crazy, I don't see him. Yeah. I don't see Izzy needing to knock him out. I see him just being able to outpoint him.
I agree. Everybody always respects Izzy striking so much that they're afraid to commit. But it's when you see guys go in and commit, Robert Whitaker, Alex Pereira, when you see these guys go in and commit, that's when Izzy puts them away. But these guys who try to point fight him because they're kind of tentative and they're hesitant to come in and open up, Izzy won't force anything. So he's like, hey, if you guys want to sit and go tit for tat, I'll pick you apart and I'll just win a decision that way. So
he's fine with it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys, there you have it. There's the main card, UFC 290, whatever number we're on, 293 over here. Kamuela, the Jawaian Kirk.
Thanks for having me on. It's awesome to see the shed too. It's my first time being on the new set.
It's a pretty solid little getup.
It's a great setup
over here.
I'm happy for you guys.
So yeah, not you guys, me.
Yeah, I'm happy for
Brandon did nothing. Like I mean, this isn't my yard. Brandon, you have a very nice backyard, but it doesn't have a podcast shed. So, all right, we'll see you next time, guys. Stick around here, and I will get the undercard going in 2 seconds. All right, you guys, we are back. Let's get into these prelim fights for UFC 293. Kamuela has left us. He abandoned us again. Now I'm here alone. Brandon's gone. Kamuela's gone. Cole's here. Or is he? You guys don't know because you can't see. Just some guy behind a computer and behind some cameras. All right, before we do, again, you guys go check out the Patreon, check out the Discord. Brandon dropped a plus $1,400 Volkan Ozdemir by sub just minutes before the last card. So if you guys are on the Patreon, make sure you guys jump on the Discord as well, because of course we put our picks up, but then there's a lot of stuff that's happening just last minute, a lot of chat stuff, like people bouncing ideas, throwing different bets. So that's a lot of fun. Check out the newsletter. And then of course, check out my memoir, which, is out bookstores now, which is also in the link below. So let's get into this. And we got a couple fights here. First fight of the night is Kevin Jousset versus Keifer Crosbie. And man, Jousset is big. He's tall. He's kind of lumbering. And he's just awkward to me. I don't get what he's trying to do here. I mean, his arms are so wide. His stance is so wide. His chin is up so high. He does have some decent judo. We saw him launch Jack Della Maddalena on his head a while ago. Of course, Maddalena popped up and didn't really happen anything. We've got him versus Keifer Crosbie. Crosby's 10-3. Jousset is 8-2. Crosbie has fought in Bellator a decent amount. He's got some wins there. He was actually DQ'd in one of those fights. And then he's decent. He's actually, one thing I like what he does is he shells up and then he fires off of his shell. So he'll cover high, and then he doesn't just throw one punch. He'll throw 2 or 3 punches that crowd the distance. And I really like that, especially against Jousset, who has this long guard, kind of awkward. Chin is kind of in the air. The thing with Crosbie is I think he might have a little bit of quit in him, and that worries me. If he really gets down, I think he'll fight, and I think he'll fight well. But if he's really getting beat up, I think he will kind of wither a little bit. That said, Jousset, man, his level of competition is not phenomenal. He fought a 41-year-old guy recently, 2 fights ago, and went the distance. It was really, I'm not impressed. I think this is one of those things that I think the foreigner is going to win on this card. Not huge. This wouldn't surprise me at all. Honestly, I don't really think either of these guys are going to have phenomenal UFC careers at all. I think they're going to go 0-2, 0-3. Of course, clearly there would be a winner here. So 1-2, 1-3, whatever it is. But I lean Crosbie. If this is another live spot, which is decent, if Crosbie seems to look like he wants a way out or really fade, but I kind of like him in the spot. Next up, we have Shane Young and Gabriel Miranda. And this is another one of those spots where Shane Young is durable. He's good. He does everything well. His striking is decent. His wrestling is okay. His takedown defense is decent. When he gets put on his back, he'll spend too much time there. His jiu-jitsu game's not phenomenal, but he is fine. He does all the right stuff, but he's just – my issue with Shane Young is I don't know if he knows how he's going to win a fight, and he's just kind of there. He's just kind of durable. He doesn't really do a lot, though. And then on the other side of that, you've got Gabriel Miranda. We saw against St. Denis, who murdered him, but we've seen that Benoit St. Denis is that guy. He's a 155-pound Dreykus du Plessis who just won't die and is beating guys way above his rank and pay grade. Miranda, we saw some really nice takedowns out of Miranda in that fight, and we saw some really nice striking as well. We saw him land a couple of good straight rights. We saw him do kind of the right stuff, and then he ended up getting hit with 2 spinning, I think a spinning elbow and then a spinning back fist that really wobbled him and kind of took him off his game. I don't like that Miranda will spend a lot of time on his back. He's too much of a jiu-jitsu guy, but I do like Miranda in this spot. Again, not horribly, just like the last one. These are two kind of, neither of these fights have great fighters in them. And you've heard me say it a long time, is don't bet bad fighters. And you get 2 bad fighters, which I think both of these 2 fights are filled with are 4 bad fighters. Not horrible. They're just not guys you want to bet the house on. So I think Miranda is going to end up winning this. I think he's going to find a takedown and possibly even find a submission. And if he doesn't, I think he's just wiggly enough and active enough to steal more moments in this fight against a Shane Young who just doesn't do a lot. So that's what I got. Next up, we've got Blood Diamond, Mathethe, and Charlie Radtke. And again, I'm going crazy over here because this is 3 in a row that I'm picking against the hometown guy. Jousset, they say, is French. He's been training at City Kickboxing for a long time. Young, of course, is from down under, and then we have Blood Diamond, who's been living in training at City Kickboxing for a while, against Charlie Radtke, who's an American guy. Radtke's decent. His striking is clean, high guard, does all the right stuff, decent cardio, decent wrestling, nothing amazing. But Blood Diamond is a striker who he's 3-2 in MMA. He's not knocking out guys like Orion Kosi, who's beating him. I think that was his last win was, against Orion Kosi. And Kosi did he was doing the right stuff defending on the cage, but then Kosi would hit these trips, and then Blood Diamond just didn't know what to do. He just wasn't able to get up, just none of the right stuff. And then, of course, he landed some punches in the 3rd round a little bit, but it was too little too late. And I think Radtke is just tough enough. I think he's just good enough that he's going to do the right stuff and run through some of, the jab and the movement from Blood Diamond on the outside and find his way to the inside, find his way in the clinch and do a lot of work there. Out of these 3, I think Shane Young has the best shot of winning. He's the hometown guy. We've got Jousset, Young, and Blood Diamond. I think all of them, the UFC looked outside of the roster and signed 3 new people. Well, not Miranda. Miranda was a Benoit St. Denis guy, but they found the most favorable matchups that they could for these fighters. I think Young is the best spot here out of these 3. but I'm not wowed by any of them. Next up, we have Nasrat, Hagparast, and Landon Quinones. And Quinones just lost on The Ultimate Fighter, and then they signed him to fight here, last minute replacement. And Quinones is actually a lot better than I remember him being or even thought he was striking wise. He has really good cardio. He's kind of a cardio machine. He does all of the right stuff striking. Good stance, good movement. He's got a good jab. He mixes stuff up. He's durable. He's got a massive head. And, he's actually got a decent double leg too. It's not amazing, but he times it well. He locks his hands, head right in the chest, sends people over. Thing is fighting Nasrat. And I've never been huge on Nasrat. I think he's fine. I think he does some stuff well. He just doesn't wow me. Maybe that's what it is. But Nasrat has really fast hands. He's got really good power. He holds his guard really high, almost like he's hugging his head. And then he teeters back and forth. And you don't really realize it, but he does. He ends up firing that straight left as he teeters really well and lands it. And he'll do it 2-3 times in a row. And people can't catch his rhythm on it. He throws powerful. He has really good takedown defense. He's been training with Mark Madsen, one of our guys. Was a silver medalist in Greco. I like Hagparast here. I think Quinones is tough. I think Quinones is actually going to do a lot better than people think he's going to do in the UFC. I just don't think he's going to win this spot against Nasrat, who is just a little bit more polished and a little bit of a better vet in the spot. Next up, we've got Jamie Mullarkey and John Makdessi. I'm skipping this one because Makdessi trains with me. Solid guy, awesome guy. All I'm going to say about Makdessi is two things. He's training with him and seeing him train and seeing him spar really good strikers. I've never seen anybody who has a better distance management than him. He will be a foot away from people and people will swing on him and they will all miss by a millimeter. Doesn't matter if you're 6 foot or 5 foot. He does such a good job of just barely sliding out of range, which is just something really beautiful to see, just that good of distance. And then he's just strong as shit. Dude's like 2 feet tall and he grabs me and I'm like trying to move away. And he's just like a barrel of like steel. Like he looks small. He's little. And it's like lead in his muscles, in his veins or something, but really nice guy. Really respectful guy. Hopefully he's hopefully he goes out there and gets a win this weekend against a very tough Jamie Mullarkey. Then we got Jack Jenkins. And this is another spot, man. Chepe Mariscal. Everyone just writes this dude off. They think he's just going to get murdered. Chepe is decent. He's not a world beater. He beat Trevor Peek in his UFC debut on short notice. But those two brawled it out. And Peek is no technician. All right, dude, Peek is no technician. But man, those two brawled it out left, right, every which way, takedowns. It was a phenomenal fight. And he's fighting Jack Jenkins. And Jenkins, man, he has beautiful low kicks and he has beautiful body work. He really does remind me a lot of Jack Della Maddalena, not necessarily in the way they fight, but in the skills. One in the body work. They both love to get inside, rip the body, and then come up top. But they're grappling defense, the way that they will attack the neck to get people off of them. They'll Gramby through things. I like Jack Jenkins. I like him as a fighter, but I do like Chepe Mariscal, and I think he's getting a tough fight here in Jack Jenkins, and I think Jack Jenkins is gonna win. But I think Chepe is gonna have. I think he's better than people think. I think he's gonna put up a much better fight than people think. I wouldn't be surprised to see this fight go the distance. And I think Chepe is going to win a couple of fights in the UFC before he gets his walking papers. I like Jack Jenkins here. I like the over, I think, as well. And then last up, we've got Carlos Ulberg and Da Un Jung. And this is, I think in the striking department, this is Ulberg's all day long. He's so fast. He's so dynamic. He will fire stuff right down the middle when he needs to, but really it's his left hook that does a lot of the work. Da Un's very wide in his stance. He kind of leans forward, but his shoulders are too square, and he takes a lot of unnecessary damage that way because of how wide he is. In addition to how wide he actually stands, he throws really loopy as well. It's not sharp. right down the middle. What worries me about this fight for Alberg is, does Daun Jung wrestle? We don't really see it a lot, but he actually can wrestle. He actually does have decent jiu-jitsu. I think Daun Jung could really put a wrench in everything if he did decide to wrestle. Alberg is fast. He moves well. He has good lateral movement. I think we saw him gas out with Nchukwi, not because he really doesn't have great gas, but he hurt Nchukwi and just unloaded the tank. And we've all realized now that Nchukwi is Homer Simpson, where he will just take that beating solidly, and then he's just there, and then everyone else is just dead. So I wouldn't put too much stock into that Alberg death gas on that one. I like Alberg here. I think Alberg wins. But if you see Daun starting to wrestle a lot in round one, you might throw some money live on Daun, especially if he grows to a greater dog between now and fight time. But I do think Alberg wins it. But this could go the other way if Daun decides to wrestle. So I think that is it for me. And then again, just actually really quickly before I go, most of the native guys are going to win. The Australian guys are going to win. So, and even in Canada, I think went 5-0 on that card up there. All of them might win. The ones who I think have the least shot of winning is Jousset, who's technically a Frenchman. I think Mathethe, who's Blood Diamond. But if my name was two lisps, I would go by Blood Diamond as well, which is a way cooler name. Like, I need to go by like something cool like that. Come up with a cool name in the comments. I'll start going by it. Tell Brandon, call me that. And then other than that, look at some of these trends, because some of the native guys could lose, but I think they, on the main card, they have the most favorable matchups. Okay, I think Volkov's a tough one for Tafa, but I think Austen, or not Tafa, I'm sorry, Tuivasa. I think Austen Lane is a good matchup for Tafa. Even though, it wouldn't surprise me to see that upset hit. So anyway, that's a breakdown of all those fights. Come check us out on the Discord. We'll keep watching tape between now and Friday, and maybe we'll have a little bit more clear reads on what we actually think. Maybe that Austen Lane one, I'll kind of go back and retouch up. Happy betting. We'll see you guys next time.